In 2018, New Zealand's government announced a ban on all offshore oil and gas exploration, described as an important step to address climate change and create a clean, green and sustainable future for New Zealand. Following a recent merger and acquisition, the Beehive now plans to repeal the ban. Will lifting the ban increase New Zealand's emissions? Well, that assumes it ever reduced them in the first place. You may have heard that New Zealand's emissions have actually fallen over the past few years, which is true, but that's largely due to high rainfall leading to the highest levels of hydroelectricity generation since I was about 10 years old, along with the years immediately after COVID when we had reduced international visitor numbers and reduced immigration, leading to a dampened demand for transport fuels and of course the lockdowns and those things as well. So in terms of those emissions reductions in recent years, more rain and less demand for transport fuels, but nothing to do with the oil and gas ban announced in 2018. More to the point, if a country puts an end to fossil fuel production, does that put an end to fossil fuel emissions? Well, not necessarily. Through the cards that geology has dealt them, Japan, South Korea and Taiwan have next to no domestic production of coal, oil or gas. Yet all three have higher emissions per person for coal and gas than New Zealand. Being more populated than Aotearoa, the total emissions in these countries for coal, gas and oil is substantial. How is this the case? Well, some 125 million Japanese, 51 million South Koreans and 23 or 24 million Taiwanese simply import the oil, gas and coal that they seem to need or desire. So what would happen in New Zealand if, say, coal or oil or gas could not be produced domestically? Well, it's fair to assume that people would also import here what they consider to be necessary or desirable, as happens already. Since 2013, coal imports into New Zealand have averaged about 780,000 tonnes, which is a pretty good indication that domestic demand consistently outstrips domestic supply, and that willing buyers in, say, Huntly can find willing sellers in Jakarta. When it comes to oil or transport fuels, in 2022, New Zealand has used about 3 billion litres of diesel, 2 billion litres of petrol and close to 1 billion litres of aviation fuel. And we imported the lot from Singaporean refiners or refineries. And Singapore imports crude oil because, Singaporeans aren't Saudi Arabians or Russians. Any government can pass any law that it likes, but no law is stronger than that of supply and demand. If countries like Luxembourg and Taiwan, which don't domestically produce any fossil fuel of their own, but they are able to purchase from across land and sea all the fuel that they wish to buy and burn, then so can New Zealanders, as we already do. New Zealand is very well endowed with hydro, geothermal and wind energy resources, and those resources will continue to be developed where projects are viable. But New Zealand also happens to be endowed, at least to some extent, with oil and gas and coal reserves. And as long as people in this country can legally purchase and use those fossil fuels, it makes sense for other people in this country who are willing to do so and are able to do so competitively within the laws of the game to be able to mine or drill those resources in New Zealand. Otherwise, any bans will largely benefit merchants and transporters more than they'll ever benefit the people of New Zealand or the world's climate. Thanks for your time.